Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we'll see together the command sed, which is a very powerful command. But first, I would like to recommend you two things. First, you can, if you want, download those three files. The link is in the description. And you can as well fire up your terminal with your favorite shell and just try along with me the command we will see today. And from time to time, I will give you a little exercise to solve, and you can pause the video and try to solve it. Why all of that? Because if you do that, you will practice at the same time as watching the video, and you will first remember way more than if you would only watch passively the video, and second, you would be able to transfer what you learn on your own scripts and your own commands. But of course, it's as you want. My second recommendation would be, if you want to go deeper in sed, you could of course read the sed manual page by doing man sed, but the manual page is not really complete. And if you have if you have GNU sed, and you can verify that by doing sed -- version. So here I have GNU sed 4.8, which means that I will demonstrate different commands with this version. And if you have GNU sed, you can look at the info page of sed with the command info sed as an argument. And here you will have way more information. And basically everything you can dream about sed, you will find it in there. All right, so let's begin. You can see on my right pane, I have script and a weird pattern. So what does it mean? Well, sed means stream editor, which means that it will take an input as argument, copy each line of the input, and modify this copy of the input using a script. And a script is three things for sed. It's an address, a command, and one or more options. So when you write a script, you only need to use a command. Only the command is mandatory, not the address and the options. So for example, if I do sed d on nginx.conf, so d is my script, and if I do that, there is nothing output because the d command just delete a line. So sed will use nginx.conf as an input, goes each line, copy each line in a different buffer which is called the pattern space, and execute d on this buffer and output the result of that, and then go to the next line and the next line and the next line. Since d will delete the line, it will output nothing each line one by one. So at the end, nothing plus nothing equals nothing. Now let's see a bit more what is this address. So by default, if you don't specify it like I did here, sed will go through every line of your input. The address allow you to restrict this behavior. So for example, you can precise the line number you want to modify with your command d. So if I do that, it will only read the input file and output everything which is in nginx.conf except the first line. And when I was saying that it takes every line and copy it into a different buffer, it means that the input itself is never modified. So if I do cat nginx.conf, I still have my first line http open curly brace, which wasn't there when I execute the script 1d using sed on the input nginx.conf. So you can use the address line number, so 1 or 10 if you want, and here the 10th line won't appear in the output. But you can take a range as well. If you want the output without the first to the 10th line of your file nginx.conf, you can do that, and this time the first 10th line are missing from the output. What you can do as well is use a pattern. So for example, if I use the pattern on, and you can see here, for example, there is two lines in nginx.conf which has this pattern on. Well, sed will output nginx.conf without every line with this pattern on, because I use the command D which deletes these lines. If I do that, indeed many lines are missing which have all the pattern on. Another thing you can do with the address is negate the address. So for example, if I want to delete the line, every line actually, without except the line from 1 to 10. Well, if I do that, I will delete the line from 1 to 10. So if I negate, if I inverse this address, I can use a bang like that. And this time, the output will be only the line from 1 to 10. Exactly like that. Concerning the address, again, you can... So to precise a pattern, you need to surround it with two slashes. But you can do something a bit different. You can use a backslash and then surround your pattern with two other characters, like this one, for example. And if I do that, it's exactly the same as doing that. And it gives exactly the same output. Another little trick. Right now, we execute only one script, which is only the address and the command. We don't speak about the options yet. So if you want to execute sequentially two or more scripts, you can separate them with semicolon. So for example, if I want to delete every line which has a pattern on and the pattern server, I can do that. And this time, our output doesn't have that much lines anymore. We saw quite a lot of stuff, so let's go for some little exercise. If you want, you can pause the video and try to solve this. Output the file nginx.conf except the lines containing on as a string or substring. So here's the answer. I mean, we already saw that. You can do sed and write the script /on/d nginx.conf, and here we go. You have the output, which is the nginx.conf file without the line with the pattern on. Another exercise. Can you output the line 11 to 14 of the file nginx.conf? So here's the answer. I mean, if we wanted to delete the line 11 to 14, we would do that. 11 to 14, delete nginx.conf. But it's not what we want. What we want is we want to keep them. We only want to output this line. So we need to negate, to inverse the address with the bang, and this time we will only output the line from 11 to 14. Another little exercise. Can you output the file nginx.conf except the line from 11 to 14 and 17 to 19? Here's the answer. You can do sed 11 to 14d and another script with the address and the command again from 17 to 19D. And here we go. You have your output. Last exercise, I put the file nginx.conf except the line with the pattern /etc/nginx and so on and so forth. So here's the answer. So we would be tempted at the beginning to do that. I want a pattern, so I use the slash, and then I want to delete every line which has this pattern. No, like that. It's a bit confusing because there are many slashes and it won't work. Because when sed will execute the script, it will see the first slash and then it will think, okay, it's the beginning of the pattern, and then it will see the second slash and sed will think, all right, it's the end of the pattern. And then there is a lot of gibberish. Sed will try to interpret that as a comment, but it's way more than a comment, it doesn't exist. So it doesn't work. To solve the problem, you need to use backslash and then another character, like this time we can use percentage if you want, as a delimiter for your pattern. And this time it will work. And as you can see, we can verify quickly. So there is proxy pass here in my output, but there is not the line etc nginx proxy. All right, let's see something else which shows the command line options you can use with sed. So as we saw, if we do sed 1D, sed 1D on nginx.conf, nothing will be written on the file because each line will be copied into this pattern space buffer, and this pattern space buffer will be output afterwards, line by line. Now, if we want to directly modify the file, we can use sed-i for modifying in place. And if I do that, I will write my file nginx.conf with the pattern space. So with my every lines modified by my script. I won't do it now because I don't want to modify nginx.conf, so we can copy it quickly and then execute that on the copy. And if we open the copy, oh, I forgot my SI. If we look at the copy, indeed, there is not this HTTP curly brace at the beginning. All right, let's delete the copy. Something which is super useful if you use a GNU grep, not available for other GNU sed, which is not available for the other version of sed. You can do that. And what does it mean? It means that it will copy the file nginx.conf and put the prefix .back at the end, and then it will modify the file nginx.conf. So if I run that, I have a new file nginx.conf.back, which is my backup. And nginx.conf was modified, so there is not the first line at the beginning, as you can see here. But if I cat nginx.conf.back, this time there is the first line at the beginning. So it's really practical if you are not really sure if it will work as you expect. First, you should always output the result before writing any file to be sure you get your script right. But if you want another security, you can use this backup. So you don't have to do .back like that. You can do a super backup. And it will create nginx.conf super backup. So let's delete nginx.conf, nginx.conf super backup. Let's come back like the beginning. And I have my nginx.conf file back from the dead. So we saw as well that if I come back in time, here, for example, we can use multiple scripts separated with a semicolon. What you can do as well is using -e to indicate you want to use this script and then that script and then that script and so on and so forth. It's exactly the same than using semicolon, but I prefer this notation because it's clearer. And it works the same. Just verifying quickly that I really deleted the good nginx.conf file. I'm always a bit nervous when I delete files. What you can do as well is using a file as a script. So here, for example, I have a file named script, and inside I have 1D, which is a set script as we saw. So what I can do is sed -f scripts nginx.conf. And it will just delete the first line as we saw already. So if you want to write a more complex script, you can do it in a file and then use it like that. I didn't speak about it yet, but as a pattern, you can use a regular expression as well as sed. So for example, if I do sed, beginning of the line http d on nginx.conf, it will delete the first line because the first line begins by http. By the way, if you don't know regular expression, I invite you to watch my video on grep, where I explain the meta characters of a regular expression. So it works very nice, but when we do that, we use the basics regular expression engine, which doesn't use every meta character you can use with a normal regex. So if you want to use regular expression for your pattern, I would encourage you to use -e, which means that you will use the extended regular expression engine, E or E. And if you do that, you won't have any problem with your meta characters. Otherwise, you would need to escape them. All right, last command line option. You can silence your output. So if you do sed -n 1d on nginx.conf, there is no output. And you might wonder what's the point, because if you use -n, you will never have an output, except if you use another command, which is p, which means print. And if you use print without -n, it will do that. It will, my address is 1, so it will take the first line, and it will output the first line 2 times. So if I don't want that, but I just want to output the first line, I can do -n, and in that case, only the first line of my file will be output. All right, let's try to do some exercise. Can you solve that? Output only the lines which have the pattern on from the file nginx.conf. And this time you will be able, you can try to solve that in 2 different ways. So here's the answer. First, as we saw, you can just do, you can use the p command on nginx.conf, and it will only output every line which has the pattern on. And there is more lines that you might sort because, you know, here application has on inside the word and location on at the end. So the other solution would be, as we saw at the beginning, we want only the pattern on, so we need to negate the address nginx.conf, and it has exactly the same result. Another exercise, output only the line beginning by 2 whitespace characters from the file nginx.conf. So here's the answer. You can do sed minus e, because we will use a regular expression here using meta characters, and we want to output only the line beginning by 2 whitespace. So we want this pattern, and we want to negate it on nginx.conf, and you will have only the line which begins by 2 whitespace. Another solution, again using the p command, and I prefer using the p command because it's more clear, it's really what you want to print. With the negation it's always a bit confusing. So exactly the same pattern, except that you will use p this time with the option -n, and it output exactly the same result. Last exercise, copy the file pacman.conf and delete directly in the copy the first 2 lines. So let's do that on nginx.conf because I think I won't include pacman.conf, we didn't use it yet. So cp nginx.conf, let's call it nginx.conf2, and here's the answer. Set -i to change in place nginx.conf2. Oh, it's not s, it's d. And if I cat nginx.conf2, you can see that it's missing the first 2 lines. And I can delete it now. Alright, that was a very brief introduction of sed. We didn't see yet the most important command of sed, which is the substitution command, the substitute command, sorry. We will see that in another video, but I think it was very important to explain what is sed and how it works a bit with all the commands, because sed is not only the substitute command. Thank you for watching, and I see you very soon.